there's something inside of me that pulls beneath the surface. I have to say, if I had a student of mine that wrote a song like this, or poetry, or I had seen this in their notebook, I would have been really concerned for them. I would have been worried. I would have tried to talk to them about it. And yet, this song has become like such a joke to so many people about, teen angst that is like not warranted in some way, that's not valid, and we make fun of Linkin Park, and me included. Like, if you ask me, do I like Linkin Park, I'd say, no, of course I don't, despite the fact that when this song came out, I liked it, and I liked a lot of that music. I had to take a step back recently because there have been a lot of celebrities that we've lost recently, and several of them, unfortunately, to suicide. And Chester Bennington is simply the latest in a long string of musicians and artists who have taken their own lives. But this was the first one that I saw where people were really angry at him and also making fun of it. There was a sharp increase in the, fuck you for doing this. This is so selfish. What an asshole. I can't believe he did this on, was it the other guy's birthday, the guy from Soundgarden's birthday, Chris Cornell. And I can't, and other people were just like, fine, that's funny. Who gives a shit, And that's so strange because, like, that should never be funny. It should never, that's such a weird reaction for me to see from people. And like, I've made fun of Linkin Park 1,000 times, like, because they were popular. Maybe it was, the sort of Nickelback effect where because something becomes so popular and so like overplayed that people don't like it and there's a reaction to it. But also I think a lot of people associate Linkin Park and that music and the music of that time and that sound of like nu metal with being in middle school, as so many of us were, and that embarrassment, that embarrassment and that feeling of like all of those feelings of insecurity, of like how you were, those sort of cringy regrets of that time in your life and in my life and in all that. I think a lot of people have a sort of, they're projecting their sort of cringy regrets and shame and embarrassment of that time onto people like Chester Bennington, which is why it was so much easier for people to sort of jump on the bandwagon and make fun of him and mock him when he took his own life, as opposed to Chris Cornell. If you were going to have me, say, oh, well, was Chester Bennington as good or prolific a musician as Chris Cornell? Well, no, obviously he wasn't. I would say he objectively wasn't. It's also really not the point. I think it's really strange that people have had that's such a negative, sort of cold-hearted reaction to his death. And he very specifically went on to say that he had experienced sexual abuse as a child and he couldn't deal with it anymore, and he didn't want all of this pain and this, this shame and all these feelings. And it's so sad because when you look back at those songs, which so many of us make fun of, which so many of us use in memes to make fun of angsty teenagers, it is so clear what was going on. All of the things in these songs are talking about just textbook feelings of trauma after sexual abuse. I feel like if Chester Bennington was a girl, people would have not had this reaction to him. If Chester Bennington was a woman singing, crawling in my skin, these wounds will not heal, people would think, wow, something must have really happened to her, instead of this horrible, like, cold-hearted reaction that we see. We really don't care enough about men's mental health in this country, and I think around the world in general. We don't pay attention to the signs and the signals in men and in young boys that something might be going on with them. We just expect them to toughen up and be a man and don't cry and don't do this and don't do that. And it's like any show, any tell of like emotion or that something's wrong or opening up to people at all is like is such a risk for young men to become really alienated from their peers, and we do not give young men the emotional space and don't give them the emotional intelligence. We don't raise them to have the emotional intelligence enough to really deal with this. You know, there are a lot of really horrible things that happen to women in this country, but men definitely have a higher success rate with suicide. It's like it doesn't matter to people because men should just be tough. And I think that's so stupid. It's so wrong. It's so illogical. It just doesn't make any sense. And for what? To like feel tough, to feel like a tough guy, to feel strong and stoic. That stoicism is killing us as like humans, you know. Stoicism can be good temporarily, but it's not something that you can always have. And we just don't, it's not even them, it's us. It's how people react to boys and young men opening up. It's the way we react to men crying. It's the way we react to men coming out and saying, I was sexually abused, I was raped, I was this or that. Like, these things are really bothering me and I'm scared and I need help. Like, what really is so painful to see about Chester Bennington and these songs that he wrote and everything with Linkin Park is that these songs really spoke to me when I was young. These songs really allowed me to sort of embrace a sadness that was happening with me because I was a deeply sad child going through a lot of really horrible stuff. And so I was mopey and I was depressed and I did have problems. And these songs helped me just get it out. And I was also like a dopey teenager who did stupid things, right? And that embarrassment and the cringe stuck with me after the songs had gotten all those things out, right? And I think that's the experience of a lot of people had, is that you listen to these songs and you're kind of embarrassed about it in retrospect. And so Chester Bennington and these guys open up to us and they write these songs that are very clearly about very vulnerable topics and pain and depression and abuse and all these things. And then what do we give them back? The reaction we have to them once we're older and sort of over it, right? And once we grow up is we're so embarrassed that we just dogpile on them. That sucks. It's a shitty thing to do to somebody. I think it's a very painful thing to do to an artist who opens themselves up to you in a way that's already really hard for guys. They gave us something that helped us in the time, and then we shit on them because we're too embarrassed to face that we were ever vulnerable children. It's not right. It really isn't, and I feel bad for all the times I made fun of them now. I really do, because I realize now that it had nothing to do with them. It had nothing to do with Linkin Park or Chester Bennington. It had to do with me being embarrassed that I was ever a teenager. And it had all to do with that. And I think that's what a lot of people do. I just want us so much to go into the future thinking about men's mental health and thinking about what they're going through, listening to their lyrics and their art and looking at their art and giving them the emotional space to reach out if they need it. And just not shaming people because we're embarrassed we were ever kids, you know, like can we grow up enough to do that? Can we just grow up and admit, yeah, we were kids, it was dorky. We don't need to shit on these people who were there for us when we needed it. I don't know. Rest in peace. Sorry to hear it. Let me know what you guys think down below. I'm gonna go to bed. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.